Welcome to Esoteric Talk, where we cover everything within the realm of spiritual mystery. Join me, astrologer, psychic medium, and frequency healer, Lydia Chiarenza.
And me, Rachel Talia, hypnotherapist, intuitive, and energy practitioner, as we uncover what lies beneath. In today's episode of Esoteric Talk with AstroGnosis, hypnotherapy, and astrology.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 6 of AstroGnosis Esoteric Talk. In today's episode, me and Rachel interviewed each other on the basis of our spiritual awakenings and what that consisted of. We talked about things such as spiritual rebellion, learning to be at peace, and ultimately with the entire basis being that anything is possible, along with our own personal journeys of learning that for ourselves. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Rachel.
All right. Hey, Lydia.
Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Good, thank you. It's been a crazy, chaotic couple weeks, it seems like, energetically. I don't know about you.
Oh, God, yes, it definitely has. We don't even know what day it is today, guys, so...
Yeah, I don't know. Tuesday, Wednesday? I don't know.
We're going to wing this today.
But that's the best way to do it, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. So today, for this episode, me and Rachel are going to talk about our own individual spiritual awakening experiences. And yeah, that's kind of what we're going to go with.
And perhaps correlate it with some astrology so that we can tie it in for those that may be going through similar experiences or that have similar archetypal paths to go on, i.e. Pisces and Scorpio and all the other stuff. Cancer and North Node and what's your North Node again? Jesus. Oh, Pisces, obviously. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am a Pisces North Node, and Rachel is a Cancer North Node. We have mutual trining North Nodes, actually. They assist each other in their purpose.
So for those of you that are not students of astrology and don't know what a North Node is, Lydia, would you care to explain to these lovely people?
Should I give them the rundown of what I say in just about every reading? The North Node.
Yes, please make it very official.
This is like my go-to explanation. So when you consider the birth chart as a whole, like a map, you look to the South Node of the natal chart to see the past, to see potential past lives as well, if we're exploring this from the standpoint of karmic astrology. But the North Node is your destination. It is your end game. It is your soul's purpose and where you're headed in life. And due to this, it can be hard for people. It can take a bit before people are able to make their way to this destination, because ultimately you're moving away from the opposite of where you're headed.
Right, and it's like there's a comfort there. And it's even for those that don't believe in past lives, it could even be considered your early childhood years, right? The South Node is your experience, or certain themes are presented in your early childhood that can be reflected in the South Node.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to approach it again from the standpoint of karmic astrology, you come into this life with a reminder of the past. And it's kind of like, I like to think of it like, until you awaken to a certain point, that's when you find yourself. But yeah, you come into this life with the reminder of the past or your past life. So that is where you begin. It's your starting point.
So with a Pisces North Node, what does that mean, Lydia? What is it that your soul, your higher self, was going for in this lifetime? What is the direction that it's asking of you? And then you can talk about me. Thank you.
Oh, God. When it comes, I can so my Pisces North Node is in my 5th house. It is conjunct my sun, and I have a direct North Node as well. And Um, from the standpoint of growing up with my North Node conjunct my Sun, the Sun is symbolic of the father. So my introduction into spirituality was very, very largely influenced by my dad. My dad is also a Pisces, which is kind of ironic given the fact that he supported my path, but he is not openly a medium like I am, but definitely a medium. My father, I spent the majority of my childhood in cemeteries with this man who is a genealogist, but he's a very, very spiritually aware genealogist. Um, he went to various healers in my youth. He was big on mediums and clairvoyance and stuff like that, as well as meditation. Like, that was my dad's thing. My dad every single day had to go like in his room and meditate to calm down and relax. And I could always hear like the meditation music in the background in my teens. It was very, I don't know, it's very normal. It was a very normal instance. But my dad has also had many paranormal experiences, so I grew up learning about those, as well as kind of the ancient mysteries within my family. Definitely paranormal stuff, as well as otherworldly happenings. Like, he witnessed a sighting when he was a child that was actually publicized in Dexter, Michigan. The other world was something that I was very, very aware of at a young age, but I didn't really know that it would influence me so strongly, because I mean, it influenced my father. I knew that much, but I didn't know that I would become a part of this at some point too. So yeah, the North Node in Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It is the most spiritual sign of the zodiac. It encompasses all 11 signs before it. We're said to be on this is like my final hurrah. We witnessed the most otherworldly stuff, the most unexplainable, the most intuitive, and have the strongest connection to source as a whole. Yeah.
So then so having growing up with that influence, was that something as a child that interests you? Was it just the excitement of being a part of it with him, or what did it, what was the experience for you like, or how did you take it or perceive it, of being involved and going to the cemeteries and him meditating and all that?
It's so weird because I didn't even really realize, which my husband has Jupiter in Pisces, but I didn't even really realize until I married my husband, like how he kind of brought into my awareness the fact that like this was kind of unique. Like, to me, being raised by a Pisces man, like being intuitive, like tapping into this stuff, it was so normal for me. It's not like I saw it as like, it was just life, like I was just living it. Even though I didn't have the experiences to the same extent as my dad when I was younger, I did in my own way too. Like, I knew that when I was a kid, like prayer is kind of a way of explaining it. And we actually tapped into this in our interview with Kendra, who's also a Pisces North Node. I could my intent was really strong. Like, if I really wanted something and I focused on it, like I could bring it forward. And it was kind of like a method of prayer. But I feel like the Virgo South Node, I was surrounded by Virgo people. Like, my Virgo South Node was in my 11th house. So that's my social circles and my friends. And so I had this like part of my life that was very spiritually inclined. And like all of my friends knew that my dad was like this as well. But I still felt odd in that area, kind of. Like, I didn't really share a lot of things with other people, or like, my dad would, like, he would talk to my friends about stuff, but like I didn't talk to people about like what was going on with me until like probably my teens, when Uranus went into Pisces. And that's when I got into like reading tarot and like doing other sort of stuff, like mediumship related stuff, like Ouija boards and stuff like that.
And so did you find yourself feeling supported by loved ones, relatives, friends as a teenager as you were embarking on this?
So, I mean, my relatives, no. and I didn't really talk to them about it. My dad, I always felt that support from him, definitely. And actually, a lot of people on his side of the family, too, seemed to, like, run in their bloodline a little bit. But friends, yeah, and I feel like that might have something to do with the fact that most of my friends who even had the prominent Virgo energy were in the Pisces North Node generation. So we were all going to the same place, and I feel like I acted as a catalyst in a lot of ways for a lot of those people to, like, open themselves up more to that realm.
So at what point do you think, or what age were you at a point where you felt like, yeah, I am connected, I can hear, I can receive messages, I am a clear channel? What age, or what do you think was necessary to get you to that place of fully accepting and embodying that for yourself, that awareness?
Oh my God, that took forever. And you have to consider the fact that I do have one of my luminaries conjunct my North Node. So, and it's direct as well. So I have a leg up in comparison to a lot of people. But no, I didn't fall into that place of comfort in relation to my path until after my nodal opposition in 2016. Before that point, like I started to really wake up after I had my son in 2011 because of the intuitive connection that I had to him. My North Node is in my 5th house, so my psychic potential is in relation to my children, literally, and he was my awakening point. But before that point, no way. I didn't see myself as any different from anybody else, even though I always was. Like, I definitely always was.
Well, that's also this path is a unique path, so it's not very common. You have to seek out those people. So if you were surrounded in a certain area, it really is dependent on who's around you and how you get to express that. And then also, what did you have to experience in your life? Like, you got married, you had to go through the roles of being a wife and a mother, and there's certain things that seem to have had to have happened to get you to a certain point of awareness or to beginning to see reality different, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I definitely feel like for me, with my nodal axis is exactly square my Chiron as well. So like for me, the path, like there was a decent bit of pain that I had to experience, regardless of how bad that sucks. Like it was just the case. There was pain that had to be experienced in order for me to wake up kind of to my true self, definitely. But I would say above all, like my son was my awakening point. Like realizing that I had a telepathic connection with a child and trying to explain this to other people and not being supported in that situation, but knowing without a doubt, hands down, 100% that it was real. And my son knowing this as well and still knowing this to this day. That was a lot. Like I dealt with a lot of persecution in relation to my psychic abilities. It's not necessarily that I was surrounded by people that weren't supportive of what it was. It's just that they never expected me to come out the way that I did and like really blow some people's minds. I mean, what I'm capable of, people deem as impossible. And that was really hard. But at the same time, that's a part of who I am and where I'm going.
Well, and you have Mercury in Aquarius, and so there's a certain level of having to go against the norm, going against what is acceptable. And there is a heavy price to pay for being that nail that sticks out. You're gonna stick out, and people are not comfortable with things that are different. I mean, if you're ahead of your time or you're experiencing life differently, like that gets people out of their comfort zone. So of course they're going to judge you and persecute you, but then the benefit of that is your own individuation, your own path that you're following that allows others that are on the same path to be like, to also go in that, and they can see that, they can see you going on your path and be inspired, I don't know.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, the big part of that for me, you're completely right to point out my Mercury in Aquarius. That is trine my Chiron. So my ability to be a rebel, quote unquote, was my saving grace in so many different ways. To go the opposite direction and to claim that Aquarius energy, Aquarius's phrase is I know. And I did know. I knew that what I was experiencing was indeed happening. And that was a major thing. Like, that's how, in my opinion, people go back to sleep, is by allowing other people to convince them that what they are experiencing is indeed not happening. But I feel like my mind was so strong that it didn't allow me to deny that. Like, I would be lying. I know means I know. But that's the whole basis of me creating Astrology Rebels as well. I created a place for the rebels, for the people that were spiritually different, to come and congregate and to feel accepted and non-judgment, and to have a community and somewhere to belong.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't even know how many people do you have on there now? I mean, how many do we followers or like?
I think we're nearing like 40,000 people at this point since 2017.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's a huge group. So many moderators and admins, and like, just such an opportunity to learn. I mean, that's how, I've said this before, but that's how I met you, and I really dove in deep into getting deeper into astrology and studying it, and during that 2017 2018, and it was because I learned so much because of that group. And so it's just amazing what you following that calling, that inner knowing, and you being able to stand in your truth in spite of people judging you or not accepting or calling you crazy, and how important that is for our own happiness to do that, because it's easy to just go with the flow and do normal life and just not stand out, but you're not going to be fulfilled, and you're it's like a soul death. And so to have that strength is probably has a lot to do with your makeup, what you came into experience, but also just that soul awareness that you're able to connect with and tap into.
Well, and given the fact that the moon is in Pisces right now, maybe I should go in depth in explaining the fact that I created Astrology Rebels because I saw it in a vision. I don't talk about this that much. Like, I do. I kind of, talk about it on a surface level, but like, it wasn't just a place of sanctuary for us weirdos. Like, I saw it in 2016, and I was told to create this group for these people who had messages to spread. And that's a big part of the Pisces North Node path as well. Premonition, being able to see into the future and to bring those things into actualization. I saw a lot of things, definitely. And you have to be open enough to believe. That's Pisces phrase. It's either I believe or I dream. You'll see both quoted.
So you have Gemini in the 8th house. I mean, Chiron and Gemini in the 8th house. So Chiron is that wounded place, that it's the opportunity to also work through it and heal ourselves, and then be able to offer that to others, right? So, or I'm sure there's, much more complex descriptions of that you can add. But what do you think for this lifetime that meant to have Chiron in the 8th house? That's on your map. What do you think are some of the experiences that you've have to work through, or to help heal yourself and be able to bring that gift to others?
In true Scorpio moon and Scorpio rising fashion, to go into it without going too deep into it, there isn't a lot of pain that I haven't experienced of a traumatic nature. And I feel like my trauma and the darkness that I have witnessed, I had somebody actually tell me that I was the light in the darkness. And this has really stuck with me a lot, because I've attracted a lot of dark people and circumstances into my life. I feel like as an astrologer and as a clairvoyant and everything that I do on a healing scale, like, that allows me to relate to other people. Like there isn't much that somebody could come to me with that I couldn't relate to on some level, from a healing standpoint. And so I feel like personally the Chiron and the Gemini and 8th house, like that was, as much as so many circumstances were painful, and I have seen the ugliest pieces of the people who were closest to me in life intimately, at the same time, it has taught me to understand that everybody has a closet and everybody has secrets and everybody has parts of them that they don't want to disclose to the world. And those secrets and that trauma and that hidden stuff was painful for me in other people for a really long time. But at this point, again, I can embrace my experiences, the trauma, the good, the bad, and understand where it has brought me. Definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, so you're a Pisces and you're Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising. So the Pisces for you as your sun sign in the 5th house, I mean, obviously it is geared or more inclined towards the metaphysical, the spiritual, the openness. But being in the 5th house, how would that need to be expressed? Or what's the stage that is expressed in? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like a Pisces, 5th house Pisces sun, North Node, like I approach, it is expression, like spirituality and my spiritual gifts and all that stuff. I do this on a stage. I am a performer. The Sabian for my son is a famous revivalist. I bring that to the world, but it's not from like a Leo standpoint where it's like super ego infused. It's like my ego in general acts in a way that it wants to enlighten the masses. Like I want to make people aware of the fact that these things are real and these things are valid, and to open a few minds and hearts kind of to the possibilities of life.
And then you have Pluto in your 1st house too. So that also can be a huge, I mean, okay, so Pluto in the 1st can be really difficult, but that power that's accessible to you, like how did you work through learning how to use that power?
Oh God. Pluto in the 1st house. I mean, I scare people sometimes, like even to this. I don't mean to.
Pisces, I couldn't even imagine.
Well, that's what's funny. I always say that my Scorpio moon and Pluto in my 1st house, because my moon and Pluto are both there, conjunct. Like that's my backbone. Like Pisces is so soft in general, and I have Chiron square my sun, but like my moon Pluto is there to put you in your place and show you not to mess with me. But it's really funny, like as a Pisces with Pluto in the 1st house, like we really do have this way as Pluto 1st house people of clearing the seas. Like I can be in the grocery store and walk towards like a group of people and they will scatter. And I even have Pluto retrograde. Like I can only imagine the Pluto direct people.
Danger! Oh my God, she could see through me.
Oh yeah, definitely laser vision as well. That is one thing, hands down. But Pluto in the 1st, it was like scary when I was younger with my moon conjunct Pluto, because I would experience emotion on such an intense level. Like it felt like I was like that chick from The Exorcist. Like my head was spinning around and like purging all this energy every time that I would go through like a seriously emotional experience. And then I would dye my hair or I would cut my hair. I would change my appearance and I'd be like this entirely new person.
Yes, the constant transformation that is a requirement of the Scorpio Pluto archetype.
Most definitely.
Yeah, well, I think too with your Mercury and Aquarius, that love for information and innovative and future oriented and that quick, intelligent mind, like you've been able to from what I've observed working with you and being your friend is you gather information and you're able to process it in a way that can benefit other people, that's understandable or that's exciting to share, so I'm sure like that's also a big part of your spiritual awakening, is having that curiosity, but then being able to understand it at such a deep level.
Oh yeah, and definitely apply it. It's always, you're right, with Mercury and Aquarius, it's always like I apply it to the whole. It's like I take this insight and this information and I'm like, how can I help the world with this? Like, it's not just enough to help myself. You got to take it and like bring it to the masses and say, okay, guys, look at this, consider this, etc., etc.
And I mean, we're talking a lot about astrology, and there could be people that don't know astrology. Like, they don't know what Mercury means, or what having Mercury in Aquarius, or the moon in the first, or Pluto in the first. But it's just, I mean, it's these planetary placements that are at the time of your birth are, determine the house. And so the house is the stage or the arena that these archetypes play. And so it's really hard to explain that right now, but basically, if you Google some of this stuff, you'll be fine. Just kidding.
We'll go into it. If you continue to follow our show, we do plan to kind of go through the planets and have a discussion on what each of them are. We've talked about this, so
yeah, definitely. We did our
all right, Rachel. It is your turn to answer my questions now.
All right. In true Sun in the 12th house form, I suppose.
12th house, especially. Yeah, so you have so much. Well, I mean, I always feel like you have a lot of 12th house energy, but you actually don't. You have more Neptune than 12th house, I feel like. But when do you feel like this journey really began for you? Like, how old were you?
Oh, God. I mean, I remember, so I was raised Catholic, but I remember, being in church probably 6 years old and knowing that I wasn't feeling the way I was supposed to be feeling, but I didn't know what the supposed to be feeling was. Like, I just remember listening to the priest talk and it's like, something's not right, and I would be looking for the colors around the head. And, I remember seeing the auras and then they went away. And I remember like looking for them and not being able to see them anymore about that age. And just the interest in connecting with God at a very young age, asking my grandma, like, stuff about God. And she said one day he was going to come and pick us up. So I imagine like a giant hand coming for us, so I was always curious or talking about those things at a young age. And I did have a lot of paranormal experiences and, seeing things and talking to spirits, and just a lot of weird, scary encounters of things that, of seeing things or feeling things. But to be able to actually gain access to information, it was probably about 12 or 13 maybe. And then Sylvia Brown would come on Montel Williams, and that's why when Kendra was talking about that, she also was like, it was huge for me because she talked about the other side and afterlife and and so I got her books and so and then in middle school and high school I got like oracle cards and would do that with friends at school even though I didn't know what I was doing, and then interest in the Ouija. But it was, I think, especially during my teen years. So I'm triple Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising. So, of course, there's a lot of trauma and a lot of pain and a lot of experiences that I had where I felt that if I didn't have that, if I didn't have a connection or spirituality, that I would not be okay. And I knew I had to. So it was like at that age, I had to study and find the answers and find something deeper and find a connection to God. So that I could keep on going, to have a reason to keep going.
Well, they say that about the scorpion, the Scorpio's evolutionary cycle from Scorpio to Eagle to Phoenix. Phoenix is the one that gives it over to a higher power. So I think you're completely right about the fact that you would not be okay if you did not seek this out, because that's what Scorpio's here to do ultimately.
Yeah, I feel like certain experiences, do I wish I could have gone without them? Oh, definitely. I would not have gone through so much pain or suffering if I didn't, but my capacity to feel and embrace and love is huge because of my ability to go into some heavy, dark places, and now, it took a long time to realize that I could be okay, that I could find my way out of it. I mean, there was many years where it felt like a depression, even though I wasn't like depressed where I wouldn't get out of bed or do anything, but it just felt like life was heavy and that it was hard, and it just felt like, there wasn't an ending. But when I finally gained the tools to learn how to work through that, whether it was doing meditation, learning mantras, reading books. I mean, books are huge for me. And that was like my way of getting the information and having the tools. Okay, so I know if I go through this, then I can try this or I can do that. I'm a Reiki master now, blah, blah, blah. I can do Reiki, and I have the meditation. Then I did the hypnosis later on. And, so it was like all of that suffering, all that pain was like, it caused me to have to look for answers. So then in turn, I've been able to help people that I encounter, with those tools and resources, and to have the compassion to be with people, that are grieving some heavy things, and not be afraid to be with them in their darkness or in their dark times.
Yeah, definitely. I always find it interesting when you mention books because of the Sabian for your North Node. Being guests are reading in the library of a luxurious home, and you are constantly quoting like things. Like Rachel, in my mind, to see Rachel's like happy place. It's like in this giant house, literally, with like walls full of books. Like you would just be so esoteric literature, of course, and like psychology and stuff like that allows you to go deep in there. But when did you, I'm trying to figure out, like, what point did you really begin to transition, do you think, to the 8th house? Because I feel like what you described in relation to waking up every day and feeling like it was hard, that's very much so like your Capricorn South Node, and then you were given the tools, the 8th house North Node tools in Cancer, to really go in there and kind of fix a lot of that stuff. So when did that transition begin for you?
So, let's see. I think I finally started getting fully comfortable and embracing. Like, I've always sought out groups or events to participate in, but I would say definitely after my Saturn return.
That makes sense because, yeah, your Saturn would be very much so connected to the past for you.
Yeah, because it felt like after my Saturn return, like something just turned on. And so Saturn return is what, 27, 28 to 30?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I'm 38 right now. So, like, that's when I got more, like, got involved. I got my certifications in Reiki, started doing Reiki shares, and then going and doing groups, like developing intuition groups and all that. And then doing the hypnosis, getting certified in hypnosis in 2015, and then doing events for people with that and having them do experiences. So definitely around that, like being able to actually, but whatever I got before, whatever information, like I would share it with a few people, but really feeling like I connected with people that embraced who I was and what I was into, and not feeling like the freaking oddball. I mean, that's my freaking square with Pluto and Jupiter, and even you can consider Mercury and Saturn to my North Node, like in the 11th house, like always feeling like the freaking weirdo But finally at that time, it's like I connected with groups of people that resonated with me.
Did you know that your Saturn return would have occurred around, well, it's very close to your nodal opposition. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it always is, but I don't know what I'm being led to consider this fact right now. That's like a major point. You would have gone through an awakening point right around the same time transitory as I did, which is true. They say the nodal opposition in general, coupled with the Saturn return, like those two are major awakenings. But I feel like for you being a Capricorn South node as well, like that's even more so true. I just went and drew like transits of when your return would have been, and Uranus was also in Pisces, which would trine your North node as well. So that probably helped too.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just been a few years of finally getting to a place of I don't give a fuck what people think. You know, I mean, there's still, don't get me wrong, there's still times I'm like, you know, oh God, you know, I probably look like a weirdo. But I mean, I got Uranus conjunct my moon and ascendant, so I'm always going to look like a weirdo. Like, I just have to, I realize I just have to embrace that. Like, that's just, you know, that is, but by being yourself, like, it allows other people to feel comfortable to be themselves. So, I forgot where I was going with this, but yeah, Uranus and Pisces during that time, it just makes sense. But just to not care, to get to a place, and you know, it's still a process. I'm still working through it, but to really be like, you know what, those that love you for who you are, and those that don't, it's either they don't know you, they're projecting their own shit onto you, or you know, it doesn't even freaking matter because it has nothing to do with you. That's their own experience. You know?
I feel like that's something that you and I can relate to so much, and that's with our South nodes being in Earth. The Virgo and the Capricorn. Capricorn needs to establish that authority, and Virgo needs to the logic and to be correct, you know? And yeah, I mean, I understand that. Even with the support of my Mercury and Aquarius dancing to the beat of its own drum, like it took a bit for me to feel like, you know, fuck them. Fuck them if they don't fucking support me. Especially when I know that you've dealt with a decent amount of persecution yourself in this path and being kind of looked at differently for choosing kind of the lifestyle that you have. But
God, yeah, it's like I feel like I must have had a lifetime where either I was a persecutor or persecuted for beliefs, like strong religious beliefs, because you know, very few family support in regards to my spiritual beliefs. Like, for some reason, if you don't claim to say that Jesus Christ is your personal Lord and Savior, if you don't say that, oh God, let's worry about you going to heaven. But let's not think about all the good things you do. No. Let's not think about, you know, your thousands of books that you've spent about God and spirituality. No. We just got to say this word. And if you don't say this word and you're open to other things like Buddhism and Hinduism and any other isms, and then you're just not going to heaven. You know, so it's like I've had that, and even if people don't say it, you freaking feel it. You feel it in their presence. So it's like, that's why for me, having a freaking stellium in the 11th house, I've had to make sure that I get good people around me and that are supportive and that have similar interests. For me to be able to pursue my happiness, it is dependent on making sure that I surround myself with loving, supporting, open-minded, spiritually inclined, metaphysically drawn people. Like that's I think my way of working through whatever difficult stuff I still have to work through in regards to being rejected or persecuted or whatever. Does that make sense?
I feel like in my instance, it was so different. It's not a religious thing. It's not belief necessarily, because, I mean, I was raised in a household where my father was agnostic. My mother was Lutheran. And Lutheran, I mean, for all of the Christian ideologies, like, they're one of the most calm, actually. But, so it wasn't a belief-related thing, but there was a lot of, like, crazy finger pointing that went on in my family. Like people who step out of line and people who claim these gifts for themselves and people who claim to be able to do things that aren't normal. Like we need to point the finger at them and potentially medicate them as well. And that's the Virgo side of things. Definitely Virgo needing to claim that things are just not real and it's something that's actually innately wrong with you. And I still get pissed off thinking about this, but I feel like whereas you have to reach out to the collective, you know, your support system in your 11th house, like for me, I had a legitimate, it's like ancestral karma that I had to break. Like I had to raise my child in a very different situation where, I mean, that's very much so, I think, a part of Sebastian, my son's path. And now I have another one coming. But Sebs is a Sagittarius North Node. It's in his 3rd house. It's conjunct his IC. And I had to really fight for him to be able to have his own beliefs. And as a Sagittarius North Node, like this little dude has to be able, his Jupiter's in his 8th house as well. So he's like going in deep. He has to be able to, you know, explore all facets of theology, like not just Christianity, but there was a lot of like frowning upon that. And I feel like my breaking free from the mold was very much so karmic. It was very much so ancestral, but it was also for him. Definitely. So that he could do this and be comfortable with this and have a mom that he could come to and be like, hey mom, I can hear you. And it would be okay. And it wouldn't be deemed as like, you're crazy. We need to figure out what's wrong with your head.
Yeah, definitely having to pave the way, you know, as a parent and being that light for him and your next son that's coming. I can really see that. I think in regard, okay, so, you know, I have Venus and Neptune in the 1st house and then Sun in the 12th. So there tends to be a lot of projection, right? So people tend to see me a certain way. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. A lot of times it's not, right? I don't know if I'm sure. But I think for me was getting to a place of being able to know in my core and connect to something greater, to know that no matter what anybody says or thinks or what's done to me or happens or what I experience or even the things that I do that has caused pain, that ultimately for me, it is a matter of remembering to get into alignment with that truth, to be able to look at whatever's going on and find forgiveness, not on, oh, I forgive you because, you know, because I'm better than you type forgiveness or I'm above this. No, forgive you because like basically reality as we see it is not reality as it is. There's something so much greater and more connected. And for me, I have to, and I think that's the Sun in the 12th, I have to always find a way to connect to that, because if I don't, then I'm off balance. I get all wrapped up and stuff. And and so I can tell when I'm not in alignment. And so I think it helps that we do these events. I do the hypnosis because it's a constant reminder for me also to get to a certain state within myself.
They are only human, Rachel. They not know what they do. I had to say that because you were saying that from a place of being higher.
Yes, my Messiah. Yes, exactly.
I feel like I have to take on that mindset sometimes because in the presence of certain people, like I've seen so much unreal shit in comparison, and it's like that's the only way that I can look at them. I'm like, they don't understand, like they haven't been through or seen the things that I have, and I have to view them in a way that is almost like an innocent child that's just ignorantly unaware of the truth in the situation.
Yeah, definitely. And because I'm more my study psychology, my interest in more, analytical psychology, Jungian psychology, like I always use these opportunities. Like I'm always constantly working on shit in my head of like, okay, so then there's this. What is this bringing up in me? So they're doing this and saying this about me. So what do I need to look at? Blah, 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 and so it's good to have that perspective because it's true. Like people in ignorance that are acting out of ignorance or have a closed mind or closed heart, they're going to they're going to do what they know how to do, and they're not going to see you clearly, but they don't even see themselves or life clearly. So with that knowing, it's so important that I be able to really focus on myself and get to that place of knowing that no matter what anybody says or thinks or believes, it doesn't affect, like, it really doesn't affect who I am unless I let it. And that's been work. That's the work.
I think that's your Neptune and Venus in your first house as well, because you experience it through that lens of the self, where you're like trying to figure out how you can adapt or relate kind of to the way that they view you ultimately. But no, I mean, I completely understand that. And you're right. It was interesting to hear you say that about them. They don't even see the world clearly, when in their mind, anybody who sees the world in a different view is the one that's wrong. It's just so ironic the way that enlightenment works in general.
Well, and that's the thing. We all have these different 12 rising signs, and everybody's viewing life through the lens of these, through these particular archetypes, and it's, so it of course, to me, life is going to be a constant transformational psychological process, and death and rebirth, and we got to face it head on, and we got to face our shadows, and ooh, let's go deep. Yeah, let's do some ayahuasca ceremonies. Yeah, that's good. That feels good, but that could be completely terrifying to somebody that, say is like, I don't know, a Taurus rising.
That's so funny that we both said the same one.
Right. Oh, you did? I didn't.
Taurus rising is gonna run their ass screaming like, no way, Jose.
Right. It's like, come on, let's look at this darkness. Isn't this great? We can face it together. It's painful, but shit, if we look at it, oh my God, we'll be free. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, that's how somebody would see it.
When they're just here to eat cake, okay?
They're just there to plan themselves, get comfy, and their evolutionary journey this lifetime is to be comfy, eat cake, and and so I think that's also good, knowing astrology and knowing people's charts. And when people are in your life and their chart, it's like, well, of course they're going to think you're insane. They got Mercury in Capricorn. Of course they're not going to see what you're saying, stuff like that.
But that's where I wish that I am such a strong supporter for astrology being this universal language that people understand. And I get that at this point in time, like, we're probably not there as a society, but I think we're moving in that direction potentially. But I just wish that people could learn to see beyond themselves, and they could learn to understand and embrace all the different aspects in the world, as I feel like there is such a struggle in that, and that creates and cultivates so much division in our world. People need to understand that it's not, like, their perception of the world is not the world. There are so many different perceptions to embrace, and understand that it's okay to be your own unique human being, and to allow other people to be their own unique human beings. It's the beauty of life in general.
Amen. I feel like I'm in service here, you revitalists. No. Preach, sister, preach. No, but it's true. But, there has to be a willingness to go to some dark places in yourself, to be open, to be open-hearted, to be open-minded, to be willing to see other people. There's an openness that's required. And if you don't know your strength, and if you don't know that there's something there to guide you and to assist you, then why would anybody want to be open to face things that are freaking scary? They wouldn't, So
if you don't know yourself, that's a big one as well.
Yes. Yeah.
It all boils down to know thyself. Like,
yeah, and not be so reliant on the opinion of others or the conditioning. I mean, to break free of conditioning, to break free of the group mentality, to be the oddball, to stand on your own, that takes a certain level of guts. It takes a certain level of strength and courage. And it's not that people don't have it or they don't have, it's just, how many, I mean, it's just not easy and it's not comfortable. So I think because of that, and it has a lot to do with where are people in their evolutionary journey? What are their experiences? Some people maybe, I think, come into this lifetime, like, no, I really just want to chill out and just, I don't really want it to be a difficult lifetime. I just kind of want to relax, and I don't want to go through major transformations or catharsis, so I don't know. It's just it sucks. Like it really would be nice if astrology could be this universal language, because it's a metaphysical language. It's not a rational, logical. It's believing that there are things out in the world that speak to you, that are symbolic or archetypes, that we are operating in this metaphysical matrix together. It's not like, oh my God, like for a materialist, astrology doesn't make sense.
The Matrix is definitely real. People get lost in that bitch all the time. You hear me. You hear me, viewers.
Don't get lost in the Matrix.
Let's go on a voyage. But astrology is a universal language. I always said that. Like the very beginning of studying astrology, for me as a highly intuitive being, like astrology explained everything that I already knew. And it gave me validity in that, like just a further backing of my intuition, because I have so much intuition. Sometimes it's nice to have something else clarify that for me.
Well, yeah, it's just like any tool. Astrology can be seen like an oracle, like it's just, people can use whatever they want as a tool, and it somehow seems to work out, whether you decide to do an oracle or tarot, or you use runes or, numerology. Like somehow the universe speaks to you through whatever tools that you're basically asking. Look, I want some tools. I want some help here. What can you give me? And then, some choose astrology, and it's a beautiful language, and it's a beautiful reflection of life. Yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
I agree completely. And I think this was a beautiful conversation that we had today.
I feel like we got some intensity and passion here. I do feel that, but I don't know. I'm glad, as we're wrapping up this talk about waking up, for me, it's always going to be a process. Like, for me, it's a constant uncovering and learning and going deeper and deeper, and, just really wanting to do the best I can with the resources and tools I have, but with as much compassion for myself as possible. So I would say, to sum it up, that's my journey. How can I be the most kind and compassionate and loving and forgiving towards myself, and then emulate that towards and give that to others?
Yeah, I kind of wonder with me personally how this will go from here on out, because I feel like a lot of my earlier awakening experiences, there was a lot of shock value, a lot of like, holy shit, that's real. Holy shit, that's real. Where I would like have these intuitive experiences or psychic experiences, and I bounce them off of other people, trying to get feedback. Like, is this real? Like, whether that was through remote viewing or mediumship or psychic perception, clairaudience, et cetera, like just asking people and getting their feedback, and having these beautiful people in my life at this point in time who were not afraid to be honest with me and to share that intimately with me. But now I feel like I'm at this point that there's nothing that can really shock me anymore. And I definitely don't feel like I'm done. Like, that will never be a thing. But I don't feel like I can really be faced too much by reality either. I've broken on through to the other side at this point.
Yeah, well, and then it's maybe it becomes more of it's a quiet process, or it changes. I think it changes throughout time, and as we age and as we go on, I'm sure it's going to be a different experience. Like, I was younger, I was really into the crystals and making sure I had the right crystals, and then making sure, and like for me, it's become much more simple as I've gotten older. It's like a simple truth.
So much more simple. I agree 100% on that. It's like I don't need anything but myself.
Yeah,
in order to connect to this.
Yeah, before it's like, oh my god, like, I need to connect, and what about twin flames, and what about this and that, and it's like, okay, that's great information, and it's exciting, and it's expensive, and it's necessary, but it just seems like, okay, are you being present, Rachel? And then it's like I have this constant inner dialogue, and sometimes it's either I'm crazy or it's my higher self, well, whatever, or a guide, but either way, it's like it's constantly redirecting, like, how present are you being present, and so for me right now, it's like learning to really just sit in presence no matter what's going on.
And to just make it through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And just connect with that peace in the midst of the storm. That's
and there's a lot of storm out there in the world right now.
Oh, God. Yeah. And that's why it's so important that we stay centered and stay balanced, or do our best, or at least move through these crazy energetic times, chaotic times the best we can, and being okay with feeling like shit sometimes, and watching it pass, just like every other freaking emotion.
Amen, sister. I agree.
Praise you, praise us, praise everyone.
We are present, we are here.
We are here, be here now. Yeah.
Sometimes me and Rachel go back to our past lives in some sort of strange religious cult. We don't talk about it openly that much, but we do this little interplay.
Right. It pops up sometimes. I don't know what it was, but
it was like the Cathars or the Templars or something like that. We burned some books. I know that much. Rachel saw it.
I saw burnt books and I was so mad that the books were getting burnt. So yeah, I don't know. But that's
interesting. We saw some things. We've been some places, and now we're here in 2020 talking to you on AstroGnosis Esoteric Talk.
Join us next week for an exciting adventure into, I don't know what we're going to be talking about, because we like to wing it. Yeah!
Hey guys, thank you for being with us this week. I think we probably have to wrap this up now, but this was a fun little talk that we had today, Rachel. I genuinely value you and love you.
I love you with my whole entire being, and I value just as much.
Join us next week, guys. We love you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.